2019. I am going to make 2 adjustments to the agenda tonight. We will be scratching item number 2, City Attorney Services Alternatives, and number 3, vacating hunting licenses in the city limits. Those will come up on future agendas. Real quick with council, I've talked to some of you, not all of you, and I'd like to get in touch with the rest of you on item number 2 on city council services. I've talked to a few of you, and we had some discussions on wanting to put this off, get some questions answered. I wanted to reach out to you guys individually in the next 3 or 4 days and just have conversations with the 3 of you that I have not had it with. And then I wanted to kind of see if it was okay with you guys, if myself and the Mayor Pro Tem set up a meeting with the Crow Law Firm, our city manager Jim, and anybody else that needs to be there. There can only be 2 of us at the meeting. That's why I was wondering if that's okay with you guys if we kind of represent council at that meeting.
Yeah,
anybody have any issues with that? So,
nope.
Okay, Mark and I will get together with you, Jim and Scott.
We'll set it up.
We'll get that date set up. I'll be, anytime I can talk to the 3 of you I didn't get a hold of this weekend, so for the 2 of you, if there's anything else you want to add in. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the rest of the work session. Item number 1. Go ahead.
You're not talking about Saturday, are you?
No. Saturday.
To get a hold of me.
No.
I'm going to be tied up all day with my aunt's funeral.
No problem. No. Anytime in the next 4 or 5 days, 6 days. Item number 1 is the NISP policy discussion. We'll hear from staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. We have our latest update and additional information for you on the Northern Integrated Supply Project, NISP project. I also should make just a short commercial that I should have asked the mayor. This is off topic here, but we are live streaming tonight for the first time. So I want to just let you all know that we aren't going to work. We plan to promote that through social media and others. Let people know. Tonight we're just going to see how it goes. We are going to. It is online, but we'll hold off till next time for broader promotion. So
doing both work session and meeting?
Oh, okay. And the ERA meeting. So it's all live.
Nobody's watching, but maybe you'd have to really hunt for it.
As be archived in there.
Yes.
You might have just said that, but I was talking about.
I don't know if I did, but that's a good point. Yes, these will all be available by links on the website under City Council meeting sessions. And this is all through YouTube, so that's how we're doing it. Anyway, back to water. This is the latest session we're having. We had some questions from council last time regarding specific rates, the impact of development on rates. We've been able to refine that modeling for you. Jessica will walk through all of that for you. And we've also been able to come back with, I think, some additional information on exactly what kind of development and how would NISP water affect our future development. So those were the main questions. There was also a question last time about the average or the water budget, the way to look at our water costs. I'll just answer that up front. And the cost that we had been showing you, that average, the monthly rate, actually had been averaged. That's what it would be on, for NISP, or for total, that would be the average cost per year. So those had already been averaged. So when you see that data, that's already factored in. With that, I'll ask Jessica to walk through the latest data. Our goal from last meeting was that council may be able to settle on direction for full participation, 1,600 acre feet, or a lesser amount. At your last meeting, there was pretty strong consensus that we should find a way to stay in NISP at some level, even if it's a low level. Tonight we've modeled 2 levels for clarity, 1,600 acre feet and 800 acre feet. And I think you'll see that you'll be able to kind of interpolate other levels, the 1,200, the 4. But our goal tonight would be to help you get closer to the level of participation that works for our community so we can continue moving forward with the NISP project. With that, turn it over to Jessica.
All right, so just a little bit of history here. We really started talking about this in depth again. So we've been talking about this for the last probably 15 years, for sure the last 12 years I've been here. But we're getting much closer now to the project developing and being at a point where the project's going to start. So in August, we brought you some information. So basically once a month, I guess, since August, we've been bringing this back and kind of building on the last sessions that we've had. So this session will talk mostly about rates and assumptions that we have in our models. So just to recap on the cost components, the raw water portion of the Northern Integrated Supply Project is about $48 million is the city's share. And that's 4% of the total project, so it's a very, very large project. And that represents 1,600 acre feet is the city's share that we've been committed to for the past probably 15 or 20 years. We're estimating the annual operating costs once the project is up and running at about $400,000 a year. And we'll also need to find an alternative for treatment. So knowing that this is going to be quite a bit of more water that the city will be purchasing, we're estimating about a $30 million cost for some sort of treatment plant, and that would, right now, that's looking like a joint treatment plant with some other cities. So these are the numbers that you'll see that we use for the assumptions in the model. So not all of that is going to come into play on June 1st of 2019. So we really have a 15-year planning window for this project until we get fully up and running. So we have added, at the council's request, system development fee revenue into the model. So taking into account that we will have development over the next 15 years, and the development is really what's driving the city's need for this water. So as we continue to grow, we need to have an opportunity to provide water to our new households. So the assumptions on the development fees will come into the city in the model, and the primary priorities for the development revenue are the capital improvements that we have in the plan for system expansion. And then this model, we built in a kind of a earmark for potential Greeley system cap fees. So we have an amount of money allocated to that every year in case we do go over that cap. And then the secondary priority is NISP. So being able to use the cash that's left after those capital projects and the Greeley cap savings account, in theory, to help fund the NISP project. So the model, we have two different growth scenarios. One we're calling the lower growth, and in the planning horizon out in 2034, we believe we would add about 1,200 single-family housing units. And then the higher growth estimate, we're at about 3,800. So the lower growth, we used basically our 5-year historic average for the number of households we're adding per year, and that was around 80. And then the higher side, we use what we're expecting to bring in over the next 5 years. So we know we have quite a bit of development in the pipeline. And then, so that was around 320. And then after 5 years, we reduced that to about 200 a year. So we're kind of using the higher now is our expected growth, I guess we would call it. So big picture, and we're going to go into a lot more about the rates here in the other slides. At the lower system development fees, at the end in 2034, we'd be at about $61 for the rate. And at 800, we'd be about 31. And the higher side, we would be at 43, I think, and 15. So this is based on a long list of assumptions that I will go through. So we are assuming current dollars, so we do not have an inflationary rate built in yet to the assumptions. We are also assuming there's no other rate increases within the system, the water system. So this is basically today's rate plus what we would need to fund NISP. The debt models are based on debt that we would issue in 3 separate tranches, and the third tranche could be 6 to 8 years from now. So we have interest rate assumptions that could change, could get lower, could get higher over the time frame that we'll be looking at issuing debt. So we do have a lot of assumptions built in there. The system development fees, they are based on today's rate with a 3% increase. So, of course, future councils will have whatever is their pleasure for increasing those system development fees, but we have historically increased them at about 3% a year. So we did build that in. And then the availability of cash, we are assuming that there will be some cash available over the 15-year time frame. And as we know, situations change, councils may change priorities, and the cash available to fund the project may go up or down over the next 15 years. So those are really the list of assumptions. Also the capital projects we have that are outside of NISP related to system expansion, those could also change over the planning time frame. So the model has quite a few assumptions built into it that could change over the next 15 years. So on the rate piece, we did look at two different options. So one option we are calling the non-smooth, and smooth is a technical term. This one, the non-smooth, really says what is the rate increase we would need when we needed to issue the debt. And so it's much lower. That's the orange there. So this is for the 1,600 acre feet. The first couple years, we're looking at a line of credit, revolving line of credit within the NISP pooled group. And so we would have low interest only payments for those first few years. And then in 2022, under the model, we would then bond for that, and that would be the first large debt tranche that we would need to have funded. And then under the smooth option, we really just kind of took that goal that we had in 2022 that we needed to meet for a rate and smooth that out over the 4 years prior to that. So you can see that would be anywhere between $4.50 and slightly over $5 for the ratepayers to build us up to that $19 that we would need in 2022. So this is what that looks like under 1,600 acre feet. At the end there, it looks kind of odd. There's a negative number. Under the assumptions in the model, we would have some cash available at the end that the city could choose to possibly retire some of the debt. So the debt on NISP, if we go into the pooled option, it will be unlikely we could retire any of that debt, but we are assuming we'll need to issue debt for the plant. So there's a possibility we could retire some of that debt and reduce those rates at the 15-year mark if the cash is available. So then on the 800 acre feet, a little bit different here, same concept though. The blue lines, I guess, are where we would need that rate increase to issue the debt, and then the yellow is the more smooth option. So you're seeing between $2 and then $8 there at the higher in 2022. I'm just going to touch on this briefly because Jim mentioned it. Council had asked us for the budget billing option and how that bill would compare, and that was the way we had presented it. So based off of average water use for 12 months, this is how our bills would compare to our neighboring communities. And again, this also has assumptions in it that the communities stay at their rate today. We all know that's not going to happen, but we would really be looking in our crystal ball to figure out what we thought they were going to increase by. So the other communities are at today's rate, and then our rate, or our bill, I guess, would be including the fee for NISP.
And that's at 1,600.
1,600, yep. This one's 1,600, and then this is 800. So one of the other key pieces that council asked us to look at was how far does our current water portfolio take us based on these growth assumptions, and then how much further would the NISP water take us? So we looked at the higher growth assumptions, that's the yellow line. So we're considering those kind of our expected growth numbers. And then we took our available EQR portfolio, which is that first set of blue lines, and based on that growth, how far will the current EQR portfolio take us? Now, of course, this isn't a perfect world that wherever that EQR is sitting, that's where it will develop. So of course, we don't know if that's going to happen. There are sections of the city that there isn't EQRs on that may develop before the ones that have them. So again, a lot of assumptions went into this piece as well. But under this at the higher growth, so in 2020, is that what that is? The current EQR portfolio, 2030, sorry, we would run out of that water. So we would have a couple years, because we believe NISP will come online in 2033, where we wouldn't have any water available to offer development if they were coming in. So we may have a couple year period there where we could not sell any water for development.
So, just to clarify, we don't have any water now to sell. The EQRs that we're showing there are out there in the community that could potentially be bought and sold and used. But that's what we're assuming, that they'll all be used. We currently don't have anything to sell.
So then when NISP came online, and this is the 1,600 acre feet assumption, we believe that water under this growth scenario would carry us through until 2051. So develop for quite a few years there. And then we ran the same scenario on the 800 acre feet. So we would be out of our current EQR portfolio around 2030. And then the NISP would come on in 33, and that would take us until about 2042 or so.
Pause there. Any other questions about these graphs?
I have a few. Sorry.
We're not quite through the whole thing, but if you, for this topic, okay.
Yeah. So when you're looking at the rates on the long term, where we looked at the kind of smoothed out rates and then those that increased up and down, I'm assuming that that considers additional SFEs as they come online. Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. And then does that consider residential and commercial pairs, or is it like a blend of all? Does that make sense? Or is
yeah, it's just residential.
Or residential, okay.
So we have it 50-50 single family, multifamily, and then 50-50 with non-potable and without non-potable.
Lots of assumptions.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Somebody write that down. Okay. So upcoming financial commitments. So by June is what the NISP, the Northern is telling us. By June is when they intend to have the revolving line of credit in place and get that all issued. So at that point, we'll need to consider the contract for the allocation of the pre-construction costs, which is about $2.8 million for us, and look at the line of credit debt agreement. So we're still working on these timelines, but that could be as soon as April 16th for the first reading. So this is coming up pretty fast. And then the rate increases, potential rate increases, those could be coming up quickly too. We're working right now with the bond council and also Jim Manier, our advisor for debt issuance, on what that's going to look like. So whether the bank that is awarded the revolving line of credit will need us to increase those rates or not right away. So that is a TBD. And then late in 2019, the allotment contracts will be coming forward to council. So still this timing is changing, and we're kind of trying to keep up with it the best we can. But these are really tentative still at this point.
So just a couple final thoughts from staff. If we go back to either, but let's say the 1,600, staying in the project, first of all, at either level, at least provides time, allows council, and we could see how the project evolves. We know that there are other partners who are interested in obtaining more water. So I think, and I think there are also potential, I'll just kind of leave it at that there will be opportunities likely to divest if the city were to need to. And so that could play into some of your thinking about rates and timing. The other consideration, as Jessica pointed out, staying in though at the 1,600 acre feet would require the significant increases soon. If not very soon, in a couple of months, it would be within a year. So we would have to commit to that level and go forward that way until and unless council made a decision to change our participation at some point in the future. So I think those are just a couple other thoughts. But with that, we would like to answer any questions and like any direction that you might have for us tonight.
So my opinion is still what I mentioned before, is we stay into the full participation. If we limited ourselves to a lower amount, and if we wind up needing more water in the future, it's going to cost us more. So that $48 million or whatever it is, if we went less, is going to wind up costing more in the long run if you went with the lower amount. If we stayed in the 1,600 acre feet and later on down the line can divest in that, we could potentially make a profit off of that, because we all know water is going to cost more in the future. It's a given. And I know there's a lot of, thoughts going around of, well, my water bill is going to increase. We're going to increase it on the residents, and it's going to happen now. Yes. And it may be political suicide for some of us if we agree with this, but if we're looking at the long-term sustainability of the city, for not just us sitting here now, but for those down the line, our future of the city, we need to have water. And I know everybody likes to talk about the now, but if we don't do anything now to help the future, it's going to cost the future leaders of this city more and more and more. So it's a catch-22. You either do something now or it's going to cost everybody later. And I would rather have the water in my portfolio, divest later, turn a profit if needed, and return that money back to the city and use it for some other projects. That's just my thought.
Other comments, questions?
I completely agree with what Mark said. I think my concern as a councilwoman is not today, it's the future and what it looks like for our children and their children, and really setting the city up for success. When I think about that, this is critical. And when we went through the models, the difference between the 800 and 1,600, in my mind, it was well worth the 1,600 to have that opportunity to grow for 20 more years versus 10, should we be able to sustain that growth. Beyond that, I think I appreciate the graph that shows where we are in comparison, but at the same point, I think all of those local municipalities will be in the exact same boat because everybody needs water, and I would anticipate that theirs all ratchet up exactly the same. I think that's really important to note, and I think our residents will see that across the board through everybody, but I think it's a really important project. I think it's advantageous to have that and be a beacon for those that want to come and develop, and we need that water for people to come here. And that development will help to increase commercial properties, retail sales, and ideally revenues within the city that will help to offset other costs we have. So I'm fully on board for the 1,600.
I'm not. I'm more along the 800 because it's in the middle ground. I understand that we're going to have growth, but I just don't see how we tell our citizens that their water bill is going up $61 more on top of what they're already paying a month. That's a lot for these people that are working with the income that they have, and they have no other way of taking it. We have a lot of people on the east side that are on fixed income. $61 on top of what our trash, our water, our storm drainage it's a lot. And I think that we could probably live with $31, smooth that out, but adding 61 I think is going to be difficult for them.
I agree with Sherry. Where I kind of differ is I think we should be at 1,000 instead of 800, but I still, being an east side person on a budget, that's a very hard pill to swallow. We can't afford that. I understand that we need to look forward into the future, but I also understand that if our water bill is so outrageous that people can't afford to live here, then nobody's going to want to live here, and people are not going to be able to build. One of the things that Evans is known for is affordable housing and affordable bills, and this is going to make it unaffordable. I think that we should maybe consider doing something a little bit more conservative when still keeping in mind our future needs.
But I guess at that same point too that you bring out is, say 10 years from now, the same residents on the east side or different, well, because we didn't go in and get more water and now we have a shortage again. Well, instead of paying another $30, now you got to pay another $60. I mean, it's a catch-22. Somewhere along the line, you're either going to have to increase it significantly or it's going to be significantly more increased, because if you don't have the water and you're going to buy it future, it's going to cost you a lot more money. So that means your rates are going to have to go a lot more than it is now in order for us to protect ourselves so we don't have those major jumps and rate increases. No matter what you have, you're always going to have people that can't afford it and will leave, and you'll still have people that want to come in here and leave. It's that catch-22. You're not going to make everybody happy, but if we don't start planning for the future now, those future rates for those people that are saying we can't afford it now are going to have to pay a lot more in the long run.
So, from what I understand is that we are purchasing water for the future.
Right.
We currently have water that supplies the people that are here.
Correct. But for how long?
So the people that are here, we're going to exorbitantly punish them for the people that are going to move in.
And they could bring water with them. And development isn't always, it's got to be controlled development. You can't just, people that live on the east side, if that's what their water bill looks like, they're not going to water, and pretty soon it's just going to be all dried up. I think there's other alternatives besides all or nothing. And I just feel like it's a lot of money.
It is.
And it's on the backs of the people that really can't afford it. And it's not their fault that the city didn't plan and it all's coming to a head.
Right. And the same thing. And then 10 years from now, the same council that's sitting, whoever's sitting here at that time, and say, well, that council didn't plan ahead. Right. And now instead of what we're asking for now it's double. So, I mean, you're in that, you're going to be in a no-win situation. But, I mean, I know we look at the now, but we also have to look at the long-term growth of the city. I mean, our job is, yes, now and what's best for the city, but also to leave it better than what we found it.
And what I'm trying to say is that we're not going to have growth in this city if our utilities and our fees and our impact fees and our water and everything is so exorbitant that another community, Greeley, Firestone, Milliken, LaSalle, all of these other communities that want to keep it in a budget for their citizens, everybody's going to go there. There's not going to be any growth.
But if we don't have water, we don't have growth, we don't have a city.
Well, and I'm not saying get rid of all the water. I'm saying stay in it at a reduced.
I think just one thing, I don't want people to think we're paying for new growth. So we have system development fees that help to offset those payments for growth, and I think that's really important. We need water to secure the future of our city. How much water is up for debate, for sure, but we need something, and I think that's incredibly important to know. The other thing I see, and I work with several water districts, I've got several that boards and councils have made poor decisions for years and years and years, and I have a couple that their water bills are looking to be astronomically high, and people are livid. And I think if they could go back in time and change the decisions, they would, but they can't. So we are to that point. I also see this for every single client I work with, which is a lot, but water is a hot commodity right now, and people really, really, really need it. And I don't see that going away, no matter what growth does for our city. And I think it's important to continue to grow. It's just a matter of what that looks like.
Right.
Well, I recall moving to Evans having a house, after I had the house built. And Evans had a flat rate. You got 3,000 gallons of water allotted per month. And if you didn't use that in the wintertime, you just lost it. But you for years, you paid a flat rate, which was very, very low compared to other places for water here. And there just wasn't, you know, it's always been, we can't afford it. The citizens can't afford it. And most of the people on the east side, their kids were grown up and gone and left Evans, apparently, from the comments that were made back in 1980. And they just wanted to remain the bedroom community. And it's caught up with us. If we're going to do anything to help this city and its citizens, we're going to have to get some retail in here, and we're going to have to grow. And water, as Miranda said, is a hot thing, and it's always been a hot commodity out here because, you know, this is a semi-arid desert. Most people don't realize that to live in Colorado, but it is. And you know, I grew up listening to stories of the Dust Bowl days, and it can happen again. We can go in a period of drought, and you know, they think that's why the Anasazi down in Mesa Verde moved, because of 13 straight years of drought. So we need to get the water and have a place to store it, and hopefully get us through those drought years.
Now, what number are you thinking, Fred?
I'm for full participation.
Full 1,600?
I also want to say really quickly that I also hope people understand, representing Ward 3, we too live on a budget, and I don't want people to see this delineation of east versus west. I think I will totally speak for myself that my husband and I have a very tight budget that we maintain for groceries and childcare and utilities and everything, and I really try to manage that. So from my perspective, having that smoothed rate really helps for that, but I want people to understand that I think each of us understand the impact on all residents of our community, and I think that's really important.
Well, I think families are different, but when you're on a fixed income, you're not going to get any more. You can't go out and get another job. They're living on bare minimum of $800 a month, and I see it time and time again. And when you raise the rate $60, that hurts.
Well,
I mean, they're going
but
without
to that
food
same
as
point,
it now.
To that same point, so too is it for a family. I mean, I appreciate that I am young and I can go get a different job and whatever, but frankly, I have a really good job, but I also have 2 children and 2 childcare expenses, and there's a lot of things that young families pay for that when you start to delineate, my budget goes to nothing. And I think a lot of people look at it and go, oh, well, you know, she can afford it, it's fine. But in the back of my head, I'm going, that's what you think. It's not an easy, it's not an easy thing for any of us. But I want people to understand that those of us in any walk of life, any capacity, understand the impact of this.
Allie?
This is definitely a hard topic to talk about, just because I see both sides. Mm-hmm. And being working, I should say, in the public welfare sector, I see how rates and decisions within a city affect our community. With that said, you know, it's unfortunate also, considering that we're a city, but we're also small to the extent that we can't provide like rebates for clients, you know, to assist them with any like water efficiencies like other cities that are larger than us can provide, or breaks. But going to, well, I do second Council Member Castle's point. You know, if you look up the median age in Evans is 28. And thinking about the future of the city, I do see that the 1,600 would definitely benefit. But at the same time, I do also see people on fixed incomes, how that would affect them. But then it's just hard. It's kind of hard because I see both sides, and I definitely want to be kind of in the middle of it, just to allow us to be a part of the NIST program, but also be able to kind of be on both ends of it. You know, we acquire water, but also it's not gonna hurt people's pocket. And I see that we do need growth, and I see that we need to move in the future and think of the future, and that definitely provide that stability and sustainability, as well as plan for that, but at the same time, at what cost? You know, it's like, I don't want to also impact our that population that's on a fixed income. So right now, I'm kind of leaning on the 800 aspect of it because of that. And I mean, it goes, you know, just based on the assumption chart. Assumptions chart. I mean, it looks like it goes to what, year 41. You know, if we go to 800, which is only like a 10-year difference because the other was 51, assuming that's how it would go. So, I mean, we can always plan and kind of figure out how we can acquire water, if the people can bring. As long as we do great planning, we'll be fine in the 800.
I did bring up to Jim about the delivery fee, not basing it just on the delivery fee, making it so that those people that use more water, that they would pay a higher price. But he said that with the debt issuance that they won't allow us to have a rate structure that would be built toward that. But I felt that would be a little bit more fair to those people that don't use as much water. And but since it can't be in the rate structure, then we have to go with the rate.
You know, it's possible that it could be done, but we've heard that you probably have to build in more plan to build rates to receive more revenue,
right.
So that you effectively have some cushion in case your revenue doesn't all come in. If water use changes, things happen, they'll insist that your rates are a little higher than they have to otherwise be, which I think offsets some of the benefit that you were thinking of. Is that fair?
Any other questions, comments? Go ahead, Fred.
It's going to be difficult. I've already spoken to several people, both on the east side and the west side of 85, about the increases. And I frankly don't want to pay that much for water. But, you know, past city council addressed part of the issue that Sherry was speaking about when they went to the tiered rates, to kind of make people that were using more water pay additional for it. And somebody told me in a conversation, one of the council members stated that, you know, we're getting close to going over the cap of Tuscany. So we certainly don't want to do that, because that, you know, going over that cap costs the city quite a bit of money, and all it does is allow Greeley to expand their water system, treatment system. It doesn't benefit us other than paying them to increase their capacities to serve us.
Eventually, with the growth coming in, though, we are going to go over our cap, and I think the staff has been doing a good job. We've been setting, I believe, money aside for when that cap does get hit. We are going to go over that probably sooner rather than later. I don't know when that day will be, but any growth is going to put us over that cap one way or the other. So that's just something we're preparing for and ready to deal with. But I see where you're coming from there. My view is, obviously, we have to do something. Otherwise, Evans is what it is, and that's what it's going to be. And I think we all agree it needs to be able to grow. I think we all agree that using the technical term of a smoothing is the way to go. So I think we're all on board there. Now it's just the number. I came into this meeting with the 1,600 in my head. I do, and I'm willing to hear Ms. Councilmember Spear and Councilmember Finn, I think 1,000 might be a good number to do. The reason I came to that conclusion in the last 10 minutes is when we talked about maybe in the future being able to sell some of it. Yeah, we probably could. And I know there's cities out there want to do it, but I don't want to take a loan in the name of our citizens just to go sell something 10 years from now. Why would I have taken that loan in the first place? I would rather take a less loan, a smaller loan, and buy a smaller amount of water with it. But I do think we do need water. 1,000 is a good number. I like that Councilwoman Spear brought out. I think 800 is just not enough, but I would be okay with 1,000 all the way up to 1,600. But I definitely think we need to be buying some of this water.
I'd be okay with 1,000.
I can stomach 1,000. 1,600 is a bit much, but.
As much as I want the full 1,600, I see where everybody's coming from on some of those fixed budgets. $4 one year, $5 the next, $5.50 the next. That adds up quick. I know 1,000, it's still gonna add up. It's gonna be $3 a month, $3.50, $4. It's adding up, and it's gonna add up just that much smaller. As far as when it goes, the other cities' numbers, I'm with you. I think all the other cities are going to go up too. I think we're early on that chart there. I think our numbers are showing it early. I think if we looked at that same chart 6 months, 8 months, 1 year from now, they're all going to be higher. Right. Not all, but most, and definitely anybody that's in this. I'm assuming they're all going to be higher as well. So, then the last point I want to make is, and the Water and Sewer Board did a great job bringing this up. There is no more water. I mean, where else are we going to go get it from? We can go buy. Jim, I think you said at the last meeting, $36,000 is an acre foot now coming from.
About that, yeah.
Yeah, about
Could be a little higher,
$36,000, which is a 35% increase in 1 year. I believe
something like
was
that.
The number we heard at the Water and Sewer Board. That number's not going to go lower; it's just going to be higher. Instead of buying gold, buy water if you got it. So I think we need to buy it now.
And the thing is, Rudy, if we do decide that we want to lower the number, if we take the 1,600, it's an investment.
It is.
It's an investment. If you want to sell some later on to reduce the amount of debt for the citizens, you can do it.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying, as far as if we're just planning on buying some and selling it to Greeley or selling it to it is, I'd rather not take the loan out in the name of the citizens.
Agreed.
I think, if the more water you got from more diversified places, the better off the city's going to be.
Other comments or questions? I think staff's looking. Do you need the number now?
Well, we're working toward it. I'm hearing 1,000 as, I don't know if I can see a head nod, supporting 1,000. A couple, it sounds like there's still some interest in more, but I am seeing probably more than half the council is supportive of 1,000. Is that where we are tonight?
I'm for the higher.
Sure.
Amanda?
I'd go higher than 1,000. I don't know if it has to be at 16, but 1,000 seems
What
too
would be
low.
another number, 12?
Perhaps, yeah. Mm-hmm. And along with that, I think a plan for how we can help to modify growth and what developers bring and that sort of thing would really be advantageous to really lay out so we ensure the future of our city.
I think we probably need to, crunch the numbers one more time. We're kind of narrowing here. Bring them back next time, and there may be questions prior to that meeting. And we've heard some more. I think we can keep making our information sharper for you.
Could you get us 1,000, 1,300, 1,600? Well, we have the 16.
Do
So
1,000 and 12. Do 1,000
So if they do
and
13, it makes that half.
How about
50%?
1,000, 1,200, and 800?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we're all above 800, correct?
That is
Right.
Yeah, I think I've been drugged above 800.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
What? 1,000, 1,200?
And we already have the 16.
Okay.
And Jessica, can you answer a quick question for me? So when you were going through it, you stated that you had factored in going over that Greeley cap and having costs aside, but then we also have the cost of a treatment plant. Do we have both built in there, or?
Right, the treatment plant would be for the new water.
Okay.
And the cap is for current.
That answers my
portfolio.
question. Okay, perfect. Thank
And
you.
then Greeley could still raise their treatment plant
Right.
fees beyond the cap. I mean,
Right.
people say that they want it, yeah. So we don't even have
And
that.
just so council's aware, we have a work session planned. I believe it's your first meeting in April, just to review the system development fee or the cap issue and let you know where we are in relation to it and how we're setting money aside. I don't want to let council think that we have entirely enough set aside, but we have been setting more and more aside. So, but more on that in a couple weeks.
Just a quick last question. Has there been any more talks with Greeley regarding NIST water? I know before it was possibly, maybe, no, but there could be for it down the line.
No, it doesn't look feasible right now, but perhaps in the future.
There are other municipalities.
There are some others right now that we could.
Already.
Right, so I think since it sounds like we're working on a number less than 1,600 at this point, we might also plan an executive session to seek some direction next time on how we start to move down that path of negotiating for someone else to assume part of our participation.
And the other thing is, this council's looking 15 years into the future. What are our water demands going to be in 15 years?
I think that's what that shows.
Nobody could predict that in 1980. That the demand for water was going to exceed. I'm not sure how many times they've exceeded that cap at Greeley since 1980, but at least 3 times, to my knowledge, if not, and I'm sure it's more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's $1 million or so every time we go over, correct?
That's what it was last time.
But then it adjusts. If you hit that cap, then it adjusts. And, you know, you pay that $1 million, but it adjusts that, right?
Yeah.
It goes up.
Did I get your direction, Jim?
Yes, it does.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jessica.
Next item on the agenda is update on boards and commissions. We'll hear from staff and Karen.
Yes, I think I'll probably present this, but I do want to give.
Karen on here, we have it up.
She just sounds like I'm.
I'll tell you, Karen did the work, but there are a couple policy questions that I'll share with you, and so let me find my right. The good news is we've had some interest in our boards and commissions, and I think you saw the numbers in the staff report. We have. Let's see, for the Board of Zoning Appeals, we have 5 applications for the 3 vacancies that we have. And then we have 2 applications for the 1 Water and Sewer Board spot that we have. We also had some applications for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board that Council authorized. That one, as you set it up, would advise staff. So we'll be conducting some interviews and selecting those members. Another need that we've identified that we want to recommend to you tonight is the idea of appointing an alternate member of the Planning Commission. As council is aware, the Planning Commission has really an extraordinary amount of business, of development application coming its way over the next several months. And they have experienced occasionally some quorum challenges where they haven't had enough quorum to meet, either due to work schedules or illness. We know that all of our members are volunteers, so it's sometimes hard to prioritize. But we do think that land use is certainly a high enough priority for us that we want to make sure that the city can conduct that business and move things along. So in a consultation with our city attorney, Scott Krob, we've come up with the concept of an alternate planning commission member, whereby the person would be appointed and would not have a vote. The person would probably be invited certainly to attend. I haven't run this past Scott. He can jump in if I overspeak. Potentially the person might join the commission at the dais, but would not vote. And then they would only vote in the case that there's not a quorum without that person. So if there are 5 members You need 3 to take action. The person would only vote if there were 2, excluding that alternate present. So that's how we're suggesting that could work. And so we believe we have enough candidates from this pool. On our form, you say which board you're applying for, and then others that you're willing to serve on. We have several that are interested in the planning commission. So we think we could handle that alternate position just as another interview position or, setup, which leads me to, I guess, the process. That's what we're seeking direction on tonight. Since we have more applications than spots, we do need to find a way to identify those applicants that best fit what we need for those boards and commissions. I know in the past it's been done a couple ways, where the council conducts some interviews or staff does and then recommends them to council. So those are kind of a couple options. We might recommend that there would be a subcommittee of council. We could post those interviews as public meetings, so I think you could have more than 2. But perhaps a subcommittee of council could work with staff to set up some interviews. I don't think it would take long, but we'd probably do them in one evening and just work through the various boards and have the applicants come in for short interviews. So that's what we're looking for tonight. Probably two to three council members, staff could support that process. Of course, you could also choose any other process you would like. So with that, I'll be glad to take questions or take direction.
I'll be willing to sit on the committee for the interview with staff.
I was gonna say, well, let's figure out, we want it to be council and staff, is my opinion.
I don't know, I mean, can each board make a decision that way or not? Could the existing chair and some of the other committee members
pick their own council?
Yeah, because they know who's gonna work with them better.
Does that work?
And then they're more aware of what's needed and what's not needed, and maybe might be the ones to make a better decision than that.
I like that.
Planning commission has to be appointed by you guys as far as recommending them to.
Yeah.
Planning commission, okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
I think that'd be fine.
I'm definitely in
I'm
favor
okay with
of that.
that.
Don't all the appointments have to be approved by the council?
You said
They're gonna make a
said that,
recommendation to
Choose who
council.
they feel is appropriate.
They're gonna recommend somebody to us to approve or disapprove.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that idea. They recommend somebody to them, to us, they come to us, and then it's kind of a quick impromptu interview, if you will,
Yeah.
during their confirmation. Hey, we have time to ask any questions we'd want to ask or get answered to us before we approve them.
Yeah, I'd find out if they're interested in doing that, and then have them maybe get the questions that they might ask, and see if we have some other ones we might answer.
Do we want to throw a council member on there with them?
If we want to.
Or do we want them just
I
to be
think
on their own?
it's helpful for someone from the council to kind of be present and be part of that, since they do advise you.
And we also kind of have more of a direction of where this group is going too, that would probably be very helpful in advising the planning commission.
And I think they would like that direction. From
Yes.
what I've been hearing from them, they are really not sure who we are, what our directions are, so I think maybe that would be a good idea.
And I'd be happy to go too.
Yeah.
So the
Perfect.
2 of us and the planning commission would be great. Say yes.
I'm like, perfect.
Okay.
All right.
No, we don't even have to do short straws. This
Work
time.
on it.
We can if you want.
Well, let's find out if they want to do it.
I am
If
sorry.
they say no, if they say no, how about we just add a couple staff to these two and make a committee that way?
That works,
I
yeah.
don't see why they would say no, but if they
Okay.
did, we'll just add a couple
No,
staff.
we're
We'll
telling them what to do.
Perfect.
Great. We got it. I think that's all.
Perfect.
That's all we need.
Oh, that was
All right.
Minutes, if anybody has anything for council discussion?
Sure, just real quick, Thursday night's MPO meeting, we will be voting on final approval for MPO projects. Like I said before, ours was one of the 3 in the selection part of it, so I'll be definitely voting for our project to get it funded.
That's great, thank you.
That's Thursday.
So this Saturday is the Evans Area Chamber Annual Dinner. So just a reminder to everyone that I hope you all attend.
Is anyone
I won't be
going?
I won't. I have a friend getting deployed, so
I'll be out of town.
Fred?
It depends on
Oh, yeah, you're,
my
yep.
aunt's funeral.
Yeah, I will be there.
I wish I could.
That's all I have.
Councilmember Finn,
Are you going Saturday? Okay, so you got,
I did also attend this morning the Success Foundation breakfast. I was invited by Rhonda, which is on the board for the school district, and it was very informative and it's great. And like I mentioned before, they're definitely trying to have a relationship with the city of Evans, and also suggested if we wanted to, they would like to come and maybe present in regards to how they're using the mill levy, so the community can know exactly where all the funds are being allocated. If people have questions, so they definitely can, come and hear, maybe in a future work session, they can come in and kind of give us information in regards to it, which would be nice. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I would like to throw out a challenge to the council. I understand that city manager and the chief of police are going to do the polar plunge. If they did come up with $1,000 to make them do it. So I got a check for $100 that I'm going to donate to the Special Olympics. So I'd like to challenge the rest of the council to help me make Jim
jump in the cold water.
I'm glad you're challenging.
He's just going to jump in with
I will gladly pay.
Go for it.
Tell me to go jump in the lake.
I've done it
You're
before.
braver than I.
All right, thanks. Let's meet.